maybe the Fourth Republic, maybe throughout the history of our country. We're going to have an interaction this morning with Sheikh Aremeyaw Shaibu on the need to keep the peace of the land intact. Of course, you don't want to miss this conversation. He is a member, of course, of the Peace Council, and he is also spokesperson of the National Chief Imam. Sheikh, good morning.
Good morning.
It's been quite a while since we sat
just
like
to engage. I mean,
it's been a long time. We go way back. It's really good to have you.
But I've been following you.
Well, good to hear. Let's start from the standpoint of peace, where we find ourselves in Ghana currently. What is your reading of where Ghana is positioned when it comes to peace as of today?
Thank you very much, and good morning for respected viewers this morning. I mean, coming from the angle of the National Peace Council, the previous Global Peace Index indicated that Ghana, we've lost our position on the Global Peace Index, having to be the most peaceful country in the West African sub-region. And also, we lost also position in Africa and the world at large. So, coming from, let me say, I mean, peace activist who also serves on the National Peace Council together with my colleagues, it was a matter of worry for us. And I think that some of the things that really occasioned that has to do, there was some repetitive protests in the country for some time. We know of the Boko, situation. Indeed. We have on our hands, I think more than 200 chieftaincy and community clashes that we are dealing with. And then the polarization of our political environment, all these things, come together to make us suffer a setback in our peace status as viewed from the angle of the Global Peace Index. And to contextualize, why it has become necessary for us, December 2024 elections approaching, and the whole of the media spaces are awash with a call for peace all over, and expression of trepidation and worry and anxiety is on the ascendancy in the country, and there are reasons for that, and it should help us to be able to assess the reality surrounding us, understanding which helps us to really find a way to say, look, these are things that we must do A, B, C, D to ensure that we'll be able to go through these elections once again to transition politically without getting anybody to die. You remember we still have on our hands the death of the 8 people, right, during the Tichman South. Which the Ghana police, we are yet to be informed as to what state or level they have reached in their investigation to report to the world and to Ghana, and to find out who are culpable and to ensure that there is compensation. Of course, we've heard what the court has said about it, that a certain amount of money has been earmarked and instructing the government to pay certain compensations to those people. But that we were interested also to really get the result of the investigation. So once we have this on our hands, it still remains an issue. Our political environment is very toxic with suspicion. We live in a country where almost every state institution is suspected. The police is not trusted. The judiciary is not trusted. To say here, even the Peace Council is not trusted. And even though we are doing our work very well as far as I'm concerned, the security apparatus generally is not trusted. Yeah. You've heard statements, and I think that is known to everybody, so I don't need to hide it. We've heard statements, a political party say we will not go to court. So when somebody said, I will not go to court in a situation of conflict, then what are we talking about? And the latest one, which is for worry to us, is saying that even when we attempt to do this peace pact thing, we are having our difficulties in getting the parties to accept to sign the peace pact. So if you put all these together, and then added to that, this is the first time we're having two Northerners, of course, one Muslim, one Christian, contesting. I mean, as in the two major political parties contesting, and also that also adds a certain dimension to the whole situation. And then also we've seen simple limited voter registration and what outcome we saw. I mean, we saw people coming out in violence. Just the recent voter exhibition, we've seen also the suspicion, I mean, the issues that have come up. So all these things have come together, should let us that we are living in a certain reality that makes this year's election an election of a certain unique nature. It has got its nuances, and we need to understand it very well, and they call on all stakeholders to put hands on deck and to ensure that we're able to go through. Let me add quickly, and then we've also heard the rhetorics. The rhetorics. In fact, I want to be bold to say we've transitioned from the old all die to be die to the old that we trace our origin to a revolution. And so when it comes to unleashing violence, I mean, no one matches us. I mean, we can meet them boot for boot. We've transitioned from those old rhetorics, but the new ones have come.
So you're speaking of the intemperate language and
intemperate language. I mean, the sequence. I mean,
from all die be die and subsequent apologies to the former president, John Dramani Mahama. I think we should mention by name if you're.
I mean, yeah. I mean, sometimes we respect them, so we don't want to.
We have a revolutionary. We have revolutionary roots and all of that. To all the other things we've seen, we are not handing over power to currently, like, don't hand over. You have hotels, and if you say things will burn, to all of that. That's what you're.
And we will protect our votes to the perils of our lives. We will not hand over. I mean, we will use every means to win this election.
We'll not sacrifice, winning the elections on the altar of
peace. I mean, so when you hear, when you hear these things, and you see, they are not out of context, and they are not. They are not. They don't have. We can't say they don't have any implications. Because these are statements, they are psychological implications that they prepare the minds of grassroots supporters for violence.
Right.
It creates a mindset.
Right.
Yeah. And like somebody said, I think that there can never be a good war and there can never be a bad peace.
Right. You made mention of, and it's interesting you make that point. I'll go back to something from Baruch Spinoza from his 1670 treatise, and maybe we'll reflect on that. But I just wanted to add this. When you spoke about the Tichiman situation and the people who died, we cannot compensate for a life.
That is it.
Yes, we can talk about compensations, but it's like in Kumasi, if you recall, those young people who were killed some time back, and then, we've interdicted, and it led to nothing.
The Zongo 7,
Exactly.
Yeah.
After a year or two, we have compensated. You can't compensate that woman, that man, for their child that they lost.
Yeah, I mean, true.
You can't.
Yeah.
So let's start from there. We can't afford to lose lives. But before we proceed, I'm going to ask you a question laden with other things. What do you think the legacy of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and this MPP administration will be when it comes to peace? Maintaining, sustaining it, especially as we enter an electoral cycle?
Well, I mean, peace is an all-time need. So we don't have a peace that has a political color. The need for peace during the past administration is as important as the need for peace in this time. So I think that we should rather focus on what, over the period we have been doing, to ensure that are there things that are not in the best of shape to assist us firm out the peace. Because still Ghana is still being touted as a peace haven. At least our relative peace is such that it has become the place where people can run to, even though those of us in it, we have our concerns and anxieties. But still, Ghana still remains the peace haven within the sub-region that almost every place where there is trouble, it is here that Ghana runs. And I think that we should say that something has been done. It is not perfect. That's why we find ourselves. And all stakeholders need to come on deck. And then let's see what we can do to ensure that we maintain the peace of our country.
But have the standards fallen? You started
like
talking
I
about
said,
the peace index, among others.
Yeah.
Have the standards fallen? Could we have done better?
Yes, we could have done better. We could have done better. For example, we still are contending. We have managed to contain the Boko situation, that it has not spilled down to the southern part of our country, but it's still ongoing. We still have a number of community and chieftaincy clashes that are there. It's still an issue on our hands. Our country, to be very honest, is not cohesive because it is politically polarized. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There is no single subject matter of national interest that you want to discuss dispassionately without the politics, that you can achieve that without having the political angles being drawn into it. You can imagine, even when we discuss the matter of corruption, the two major parties, for example, want to blame each other. And for example, they are not talking about that the ills of corruption, like even the current galamsey. They are not talking about the ills of the issue, but they are saying that, okay, you are more guilty.
I think it's anodompre. When I heard that, I just thought, okay, this is the height of sinking into the gutter.
That is it.
Because in any case, you let go of one option because we feel this option is more viable.
Yes.
If the president of the land, your party's leader, puts his presidency on the line.
Yeah.
And I've heard now Mr. Whittle, the Shraj boss, also weighed into it in that recent interaction with the BBC. And someone like Anodombre, with his position in Parliament, comes to say this, but they did worse than we did. Then you ask yourself, because it all boils down to peace.
The peace.
If there's no peace as far as our environment is concerned, and the Ghana Water Company Limited keeps sending us warnings that, look, now what we should have been getting maybe 80, 90% off, we are getting 50% off.
Yeah.
I've had water situations where I live for months now. The problem is gradually creeping in, and no one is talking about it because somehow that is not related to peace. But we are sitting on a time bomb.
It's related. Look,
no, I'm saying that people think it is not, but it is.
Availability of resources that makes people live a comfortable life is part of the peace process. So if you keep people devoid of essential needs, existential needs that they need to be able to survive, and that's why I said that, peace is an all-time need, and it relates to some other things that facilitate that we experience the peace. So if our water resource, our water source is being polluted to the point that there will come a time when we have to import water. Think about the very poor, the poor of the poor, which form the majority or the largest strata. If you draw the triangle, those who are found at the base, who form the majority, are the poor of the poor. How many of them will be able to import water? I'm a Muslim. I use water a lot for my prayer.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if it comes that because of the situation, I will not have the peace of mind. So peace is total. And I think that we need to understand the broad context and be able to work to achieve it together. All of us, I don't think as a nation we have really, really understood all the dimensions of peace. That's why we are handling it the way we are handling it.
Speaking of all the dimensions of peace, right? I want us to go back. This morning, while I was reflecting on this conversation, I went back to this quote of Baruch Spinoza's. He puts this in his theological political treatise, all the way from 1670. That's the 17th century. He says, peace is not an absence of war.
Yeah.
It is a virtue, a state of mind, a disposition for benevolence, confidence, justice. That's what he says.
Yeah.
I repeat, peace is not an absence of war. It is a virtue, a state of mind, a disposition for benevolence, confidence, justice. I look at the young people leaving in droves. I was shocked. I keep saying this. Yeah. Months back, I went to see someone at the airport. I was shocked. And people were telling me that's a daily affair. Of course, not everybody leaving is going to seek greener pastures. Others are going on business. But you can tell when you look around that, no, the situation is not right. It's interesting. Just a few days ago, a colleague of mine here, I used to work with him. He calls me, and guess what? He's in Ohio. in the United States, and you know what the conversation will be like. How does the peace we enjoy now fit into this? Are we actually living this out?
No, if we are living this, I don't think even the conversation will come up. I don't think that, like, around this election, we are all in a state of anxiety. Fear situation is heightening up. The closer we get to the election, the higher or the greater our anxiety and fears. If all these attributes of peace, or the dimensions as indicated in the philosopher's definition, I don't think that we'll be talking about peace. So we have a certain situation where relatively we are all in a certain state of stability. But like somebody said, it's like the peace of the cemetery. I mean, it is because the people there are dead. That's why when you go there. But assuming they have the chance to come out and speak, all of them will tell you the situation in which they find themselves in the grave. Yeah. And so I think that we are not in a state of perfect peace. And we must really identify those areas of our challenges that undermine the peace that we hope and we expect that we want to enjoy, particularly as the elections, because, I mean, peace is not just the absence of war or the absence of violence. It also relates to certain attitudes, system of governance. It also relates to prevailing security. It relates to respect for human rights, and so on and so forth. So when people are in a state where they enjoy all these, equality and non-discrimination based on religion, based on gender or social status and all those, when people live in a situation like this and they feel comfortable, resources are available, effort is being made to distribute national resources with equity and equality, and everybody feels we are all part of it, there's inclusivity and so on and so forth. When you have all these, then you can say that we are making progress in the peace. But where there are indications that we are not getting all these, then you must expect that people will still raise concerns about the peace.
We'll get to those concerns, but let me ask you, what is the significance of a peace pact or signing a document saying we will abide by the decision and try to ensure that there is peace? What is the significance? And I ask that from the standpoint that I see, even, let's stick to Africa, many other African countries, I don't see this peace pact thing going on.
Right.
They are not signing peace pacts, but they are having peaceful elections. So some would say, why are we tying this albatross round our necks? Why do we need a peace pact in the first place?
I think that it's a matter of choice, and in Ghana, probably is the price that we put on our peace, the priority we give to it. That's why when election is approaching, and we can see, like currently, we can see what is happening. We draw the attention of those who are the contending parties, that you cannot toil with our peace. The peace that we are talking about is not the peace, there's no difference in the peace that we need for political parties and the peace of citizenry. Those who are going into election, put them all together. The two major contenders. Then add the 275 or 776 parliamentarians who are going to be voted for. Then add the independent candidates and the other parties. They come to just about 300. About 300 people. That about 32 million people are going to vote for. Okay, let's say, I mean, the voting section, I can't tell the percentage of the qualified voters. These are the people, but whatever happens, these are less than 300 people who are holding this country and creating fears in our country. So therefore, 32 million people must hold them responsible. Because Ghana is not for them alone. And when they come into power, they need us. They need the people to be able to rule. But if in the way they are doing it, is going to plunge us, this country, then we must call them and commit them to peace. And so it is the price and the value that we place on peace. That's why we call them to come. And I say, great respect for all the political leaders, great respect for them. But sometimes I say, look, it's embarrassing. For me, it's embarrassing that you want to become our president. you want to become our president. And from your actions, we get afraid. So we call you to come and sit down, and we'll commit you. Tell us that when you come, you are coming, but you will maintain the peace. I think it's
and you're speaking to all the political.
No, I'm speaking to all of them.
But the point you make is exactly what I was referencing.
Yes.
That the mere fact that we have to get to the point where we are calling you like school children. Come.
Look,
don't fight. Let's have peace. In itself shows a lack of maturity in our political system.
See, that's
for all these political parties.
Yeah, I say that, look, great respect for them, because when you are on air, I mean, you need to, and from where I'm coming from, the chief imams, from the National Peace Council angle, we want to speak to everybody with respect. But from how I feel inside me, I think it's degrading to the political leaders that they themselves will not take the initiative and commit to peace from how they speak and how they raise their concerns and how they insist that probably established institutions must work, but that they speak in a certain tone that suggests that if things don't go this direction or that direction, hell will break loose and the country will be plunged into violence. And so we have to call them like children to come and do that. I think it's not, for their dignity, it's not the best. I would have wished that on their own, and from the way they carry themselves, from the way they engage in the public discourse, even within the campaigns, they will give it the satisfaction that these are people who are not looking for peace for themselves, or they don't think of peace differently from all the citizens of the country, but it's all collective peace that we are. But unfortunately, that's where we find ourselves. But still, it is a good thing to do. It's still a good, somebody will tell you, well, we have signed it, we have not seen, but it has always been a basis actually for us to be able to talk. So for example, we want to say that, look, posterity is watching you. Posterity is watching you. You signed for peace, but you did something differently. We may not be able to arrest you. We may not be able to do that. But that life has not come to a standstill yet. We are still in history in the making. Ghana is still there. You come to power. You will not remain in power forever. So the legacy that you leave, if you do things that plunges, because in violence, there is a speedy destruction of accomplishments of yesteryears. It is much, much easier to destroy during violence. And returning violence for violence only multiplies violence. It doesn't give us, that's why I will say that there can never be a good war and there can never be a bad peace. In other words, the choice always should be in the direction of peace. We may not get it as perfect as we want, but it must be our preference.
I mean, here on earth, we will not have perfect peace anywhere, but can we do better? And I know that some of these leaders of political parties are engaging in saber rattling, open saber rattling, especially both the MPP and the NDC. Yes. But this mistrust that you speak of could quickly degenerate. I always say that we can look at Kenya and what has happened there, not even the recent ones. Yeah. I'm talking about the initial incidents. You can look at Liberia, and for those of us who have lived there, Chief Sergeant or Master Sergeant Doe and some of his comments and what they degenerated into. And then you can look at his own end, how he was killed, unfortunately. But sometimes you need to let people realize these things so that they see that, look, some of what you are doing now, they say when you dig a pit, you fall in it yourself. Yeah. You could end up being the ultimate, beneficiary or loser in the end. So you see, the mistrust you speak of, it could degenerate into
terrible violence.
How then do we turn the tide of that? Look at the EC.
Yeah.
Huge mistrust on the standpoint of the EC.
Yes.
You look at the other factors. For example, recently when Johnson Esiedun Ketia spoke, and it's been months now, about not signing this peace pact. He referenced Ayawaso West Wuogon, for example, and some of their requirements that individuals alleged to have illegally printed approximately 1 million extra ballot papers during the 2020 elections should be prosecuted.
Yeah.
What has happened on that front? A public declaration by President Akufo-Addo that he will respect the outcome of the 2024 elections.
Yeah.
We've heard him say, and I will be handing over to someone from my party. And I also heard, you see, it triggers, because then the former president also said, you will not determine that. The people will determine that. Then, full disclosure from the EC on the disappearance of some electoral equipment from its office. Till today, we still don't have closure on that matter. Another one, just so I conclude. Akufo-Addo, the Inspector General of Police, the Chief Justice, the National Security Coordinator, the Attorney General, signing the peace pact themselves. And you know why these have come to play. When you look at this, is this unreasonable? Tell me.
Let me comment from the first part of the presentation you made, and I think it's like there's certain telepathic agreement in this moment. I have said somewhere and cautioned the political actors to be cautious not to be talking like warlords. And I have made reference to what this man in Sierra Leone who cut the children's hands.
I
don't know why the name has...
The name will come to us. Don't worry, the name will come to us.
Yeah, for the Sanko.
Sanko, indeed.
For the Sanko.
I think under his time, they were doing the long sleeve.
I have cautioned political actors who are so vituperative and vitriolic in the language that they use, preparing the minds. And I always saying that when both of them, when they speak, it's like they are speaking to their supporters and to prepare their minds. So they should be cautious not to be talking like warlords. So for the Sanko is one. Jonas Savimbi, we know how he ended.
Yeah.
Sergeant Doe,
yes.
We know currently the state of Charles Taylor.
I was just about to mention his name as well.
Charles Taylor. You know, so, and it goes with the Akan expression that Uobema Dudua, Yakunjao. So this is to throw the caution that when they speak the way they do, they must remember that it didn't begin with them alone, but others have others, and we've seen how they ended. And I don't think that they also want to fall into some of those things. So, and then the issue of I must say it as a person, because of the way we do our work as Peace Council, we are cautious not to be blaming people in public. We like to go behind the scenes and see correct things. And so those are matters that we have engaged with the Electoral Commission, and we have had some engagements where we have given some advice that whatever actions they have taken regarding issues of suspicion, they must make those ones public. I think the EC chair was invited to the parliament once to come and explain the circumstances behind the loss of certain gadgets. I don't know whether the parliament was satisfied with the explanations she gave, but at least we know that she came out to give some
The EC has said, for example, that yes, some of these people have been invited. Why can't we know who have been invited?
Yes.
What they had in their possession, what has been retrieved, and if not, what the implications could be on the election? Why can't we know?
Yeah, that? I think that should be the step to be taken by the EC. We leave that one to the EC. If they have given the assurance that, look, we've put in place all our arrangements and we want to guarantee you that these elections will be transparent, will be peaceful, will be fair, and so on and so forth. Recently, we heard that somebody has been arrested with a certain gadget. I don't know how far that investigation has gone. But all this, in fact, we must all agree that when it comes to election year like this, the whole destiny of the nation lies on the lap of the EC. So whatever need to be done to give assurance to the electorates, all of us, that the system is going to be as transparent as possible, is going to be as fair as possible, to offer information that the people need to be able to feel comfortable. That lies within the power of the EC, and I want to encourage them, we want to encourage the EC that EC must take all steps to ensure that whatever is of concern that has been raised, that they are able to address them. Some of them is a matter of using the IPAC to be able to address them once there is some understanding among the parties. And
the NDC is now back on IPAC, so
yes, we tried,
better.
Working together with them. With the at least my good friend Isodun Ketia, for example. We have to be talking with the Peace Council, and we must commend him. We really have to engage. To a point that finally he accepted to come back to IPAC, and I think that the concept of the IPAC needs to be deepened and accepted that this is a place where if there's an issue, we all, you see, it should not be the issue for only one party. Then when it comes like that, then it's like, this party is doing it, that. But let's create a platform where what is of concern to NDC, for example, will be of concern to PNC, APC.
But is that not precisely the problem? Because do you know something I've realized?
Yes.
And I've even spoken to diplomats.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention which foreign mission, so it doesn't appear.
Yes.
And they'll tell you, sometimes some of them attend IPAC meetings.
Yes.
Some of them are invited periodically.
As observers.
Exactly. And you can tell that discussions have been had, and it appears what the Electoral Commission decided is supported by the party and government, but everyone else thinks something else was deliberated upon.
Yeah.
And I've had it here. You would have Remy Edmondson come and say, no, from where we sit as a political party, this was not what we agreed on.
Yeah.
You would have other party people also come here and say, this was not it. Why do we have this problem where the party in power is always supportive of the EC? What is in there? What is behind it?
It has become a cycle. And I think that we all know it here. We should not hide it. The fact that the incumbent has the power to appoint the EC chair has always been a problem. Charlotte Osai, during Charlotte Osai's time, at the time, anything that comes up that was raised by the opposition then, the government or the party in power had to rush to her defense. In fact, it became like almost the spokesperson. Yeah. And this is exactly what is playing out. That is why I think we lost a great opportunity, this country. I must give great credit to former President, His Excellency Atta Mills. I must give him great credit. Atta Mills was not a politician of a political party. Yes, it is a vehicle that put him there, but in his mind and his way of doing things, he is not a partisan. He was not a partisan president.
He was not your typical politician.
That is what I want to say. A president who knows that it's enjoyable to have this unwielding power, and yet he comes and he commissions a commission to embark upon a constitutional reform and come with recommendations in which we spend colossal, I can't remember the amount, runs into, is it thousands of dollars?
You mean the Constitutional Review Commission?
Commission.
2010.
Yeah, 2010.
It was quite a bit. I don't remember exactly how much.
Durable American dollars that we spent on that. And we lost opportunity. In his departure, we could not take advantage to work on this, to reduce the appointing power of the president. We lost opportunity. And I think that if a spirit is listening to me, he must be worried. He must be worried.
Do you know what I find interesting? Our politicians usually, and we're going to fast track this because they say one thing when they are not in power, and when they are in power, it is totally, apart from maybe the example of Atta Mills that you mentioned, and some would even lampoon him that he was weak. But you see, sometimes being pacific is mistaken as being weak, being too pliable. Because Dr. Arthur Kennedy, Kwabena Arthur Kennedy, sat here and told me that he had had interactions with our current president in the past. And he had said things like, our presidency is too powerful. And if I ever become, look at us today.
Yeah.
How can one person be appointing IGP, heads of all these state institutions, ministers, and all? It's like Lord Acton's aphorism, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts.
And because he has the power to do
Give the person enough power, and if you don't have an Atta Mills there you will see some of what we are seeing.
If he decides to do, because it's been given, and all of them do it, even with the period within which they make the appointments. I mean, for example, you find that close to transition, I mean, because you have the power.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody can challenge you to that. So you go ahead and do it, and then you leave it and go away. And I think that we lost a great opportunity to be able to have really solved a long-standing, long-term problem that would have even helped us in the current situation that we find ourselves in.
And you're right.
But this point that the request that if we have to sign the Peace Pact, certain state institutions must sign. Look, the Peace Pact is our own making. We are deciding it. It's not from heaven.
Right.
We are deciding it. So if we decide to change the terms of the sign of the pact, and we find it necessary that all these institutions, I wouldn't have a problem.
But you do realize that they are communicating something. When
Yeah.
they say the IGP should sign it, we know the role the police plays in our elections.
Yeah.
And sometimes how perceivedly, purportedly, and I'm putting these in quotation marks, they appear to be biased, right? The Attorney General and his posturing, whichever way anybody wants to look at it. The judicial system. You can understand why they are,
that's why
positioning in this, and that is why, if I may add, you look at Most Reverend Matthew Kwesi James, I'm talking about the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference and others. He says, for there to be peace, there should always be justice. Some of the issues that the NDC are raising should be addressed. For example, in the Ayawaso incident, how were the findings implemented if there were findings? The short commission, you remember?
I mean,
what are the investigations so far into the murders, and where have we reached? When these things are addressed, the NDC will have no basis not to sign the peace agreement.
And that's why I didn't, even from the beginning, it was only later that I read and I thought that, and it's now been made like affirmative that we will not sign. But it was like, we are not saying we are not committed to it. And I think we must give them that credit. They are not saying we will not sign or we don't appreciate peace. But like, is it Toby Afede who said, I mean, when we talk about peace, we should not be only talking about the peace, but that the justice that underpin the peace must also be spoken about. So they are saying that while certain things are there which remain unresolved, or antecedents or previous incidents, and the way they have handled, do not give us the hope that even when we sign, it's going to lead us to something. I think we should not rubbish everything. Some we can say are not realistic, we will not be able to achieve them, but some we can talk about them. I think we're all not happy. I mean, this is my personal view. When a whole government put in place a commission to investigate and comes out with recommendations, the short commission, and then the white paper seemed to have rejected almost everything.
Exactly.
For me, I mean, it's one of the downsides. And so now it becomes a basis. It becomes a basis now for a particular party to say, look, because of what has happened, we don't think that, look, this thing is making any meaning to us. I think that we should have really acted, at least going to a certain percentage of those recommendations. And also
some of the people who are affected. I think one of them has died. The one whose foot or whose leg was shot. People's lives ruined. You can even set the political parties aside, MPP and NDC. These innocent people who suffered these things, whose lives were truncated in a way. What have we done for them? Have they got justice?
You
remember what I said from Spinoza? It ends with justice.
Justice. The justice is an essential part of every peace that we are. Once the person feels unfairly treated or treated with injustice, the pain of dissatisfaction is what leads him to act in a certain way.
Okay.
And as he continues to stay in that dissatisfaction, he looks for a way for a redress all the time. And
you're still working to get the NDC back to sign the Peace Pact.
Oh yes. My chairman and through other means. And that's why when look, the way that we do our work, like the Peace Council will not enter into a public banter with any institution, because once you do so, you lose your space, your moral space, to be able to do so. So the best thing is that, look, you've raised an issue. We think they are worth looking into. But we can negotiate. In every peace, there must be negotiation. There must be compromises. So we say, look, number one, it's not very realistic that we can work on them, but can we agree that, okay, this one is workable, this is not workable, and together with you, we can agree. And that is how we really work on peace. When dialogue comes and we negotiate, and there's certainly a bit of satisfaction and a shifting of positions. And because you do so in its dialogue, that's why you should not disrespect the person. That's why when any political party or somebody speaks in public, we don't come out and reply or reprimand or pass a judgment. And that's why the public sometimes, they misconstrue, misunderstand. I want to say strongly the work of the National Peace Council. That the Peace Council does not have the power to subpoena, so we are not a court. We don't have the power of adjudication. We don't sanction. So we don't have the power to enforce. And that's why our work is more persuasive, facilitation, coordination, calling on people. Sometimes when we have listened to you, the way you spoke, we rush to you behind the scenes and say, my brother, this thing, so that anytime we invite you for us to sit down, you look at us with respect and see that we are genuine in the way that we are pursuing it. But assuming we come, I mean, the chairman of NDC speaks, and then my chairman of the Peace Council also now rebut in a very fierce manner. You've broken that trust and respectability. So next time you call him, he tells you, Chairman, I mean, from the way you spoke, I don't think that I can sit down with you.
Now, of course, that means you expect them to make a number of concessions.
Oh, yes.
I just want to find out, so that means you think it's unfair when people say things like the Peace Council is a useful entity in resolving this situation, but they haven't been proactive.
Look, it gives me...
But they haven't been proactive.
Yeah, it gives me a bit of pain, but not anger.
Okay.
But look, I am happy I'm in the...
Because it appears everything, you are doing it backdoor, behind the scenes. And people will be asking, so if you don't say it openly, how will we know that you are doing anything? And if you say, oh, we did it behind the scenes, how do we know whether you are actually doing anything?
That's why I can't have said the opinion do manti. You know, and if the work you do in a conflict situation is largely mediative,
right?
You don't talk too much. You don't talk in public. And even for those of us who say the Peace Council is, I mean, I have heard very, very respectable people, and it was most unfortunate that they spoke the way they did. We can say so. The fact that there's shortcomings in our parliament, we will not write the parliament out completely. I think it's fallacious to think that because we have had this hung parliament and things are not the best, and we have parliamentarians 276 or 75. Why are we where we are? So should we write out completely our parliament is useless? We have an NMC, the National Media Commission, with all the mandate that they have been given. It is not a perfect. I mean, NMC can be taken to court. And I mean, we know how the Giba took NMC to court.
Right.
And all those things, the charge is there. These are things, institutions that they are doing their work, but because they have not been able to achieve to our expectations, we don't write them. And I have not heard anybody saying that we should write up this completely, it's a useless body. The Peace Council remains a very useful thing in the history. For once in our history, we thought that there was a need for an institution that will facilitate and draw all the tools of mediation to be able to keep and sustain the peace in our country. It may not be in my time. Yes, that's why we have a tenure, you know, a 4-year, you know, tenure, either for you to be reappointed. And people also think that look, it will shock you. We went somewhere, one of the media houses, and for them, their whole serious thing about the Peace Council was based on prejudice. And they thought that Reverend Professor Marty is a member of the Peace Council.
Oh, you mean...
Professor Marty.
Okay.
And then I know from my little knowledge of psychology, I said, oh, so this is what prejudice can do. This is how prejudice can color perception.
Okay.
Anyone who is prejudiced against you, your perception, how he sees you, will be colored by his existing prejudgment
so
in his mind.
So no matter what you do, it's like they say,
So you can imagine existing prejudice that now makes somebody to pass a certain judgment on the value of the National Peace Council. And I think that we must look for opportunity to really educate the public. We have done so. My chairman has done so. Look, we have had meetings with the media, reporters, we have had editors. We have had meetings with the Council of Elders of all the political parties. In fact, from 2020 Ada meeting, post-election evaluation meeting, conference that we had, in which all the political parties were involved. And from there, the assignments given to us, meeting with the IGP and talking about what happened in Techiman South, meeting with the CJ, the Chief
So it is
Justice.
clear you've been doing your work.
A lot of
and
work
you've
has
been
been
doing
done.
your work behind the scenes,
Yeah.
like you're saying. But in the next few minutes, we have to go. Let me just find out. Why do you need $1 million? Reverend Ujempi has been talking about this bit about $1 million. In fact, quoting him, he says, the council is facing numerous cases that require attention, underscoring the necessity for additional financial support. And he also says that the current workload has stretched your resources thin. That is a peace council, hindering your ability to effectively carry out essential functions. And so you need $1 million. Tell us more about that.
I think that he made that comment on the side, you know, it was not the main part of his speech.
We don't mind. Whether it was left, right, center, forward, backward. We want to find out. What do you need $1 million for?
Look.
This is about 16.5 million Ghana cedis.
The first place, my response is that, look, there's no price you can put on peace. When it comes to peace, let this country break. Let this country break into violence like you have experienced in Liberia. I have gone to Liberia to observe elections. And the state of devastation. I moved from Monrovia far away to River Seas.
Wow.
That's where I went. Even where to sleep. The state of the road, it was during a rainy season. At one point, we have to get out of our vehicle and wade through, you know, and so on. And so you see the breakdown of peace like in Sierra Leone, breakdown of peace like in Rwanda. Then you will appreciate that $1 million is not even enough for the peace of our country. But I think that some people...
But I just want to understand. I don't think it's anybody saying, oh, you don't merit...
No, there are people who have made comments.
But the question is, what are you hoping to do?
Yes.
See, we've got to the point where we want to account for every person. What do you mean to do with $1 million?
We have, in all the 16 regions, for example, we have regional peace councils and district peace councils. They need resources to be able to do their work. Okay. Sometimes, when something happens, we even have to wait for them to inform us before.
Okay.
Motorbikes, even that they need to be able to rush to from complex sites, for example, it's the vehicle that we need. If we have to move from here to Boko, there's an issue, and we have to move from here to Boko, and we need money to pay, and we don't have the resources. Most of our events now are being funded by international, donor organizations. So assuming that now all of them are not there. If these donor organizations are not there to support what we do, for example, then you can see the cost that we can put on this array of programs.
So let me put it this way.
Yes.
This year, 2024, for example, ahead of election 2024, how much have you got from donor organizations? And
well,
do you get support from government?
I mean, if I tell you, I mean from the common fund, and as I speak to you, we are even in arrears.
As in you've not been paid?
Yeah, I mean...
By government?
I mean,
What's
yes.
commitments?
Yes. I mean, because we know whether there are some challenges. So when it comes to the financial side...
How long has it been?
For the financial side, usually for us, we don't talk about the financials. It's my executive secretary who... I will leave that one to him. He will be talking about the money and the financial aspect of it. But that the Peace Council is not having adequate resources. After that one, it's a general thing. And look, we have met with people who have become so sorry. Even how much do I take as a certain allowance? I buy my fuel. Yes. Come to our office and see the state of our office. It's not that we are trying to we've been offered the land, to build the Peace House. We have established the National Peace Fund, which we inaugurated at the Kofi Annan Peace Keeping Center. Which, you can find. We have done so. The people are not even making contributions into it. Yeah. Because people, you see, they don't see the value of the peace. That's why when we mention $1 million for working peace in this country, people are raising their eyebrows. I'm saying that let's this country break into violence. And the amount of money we need to rebuild what will be destroyed, the amount of money we'll need to recast and rebuild what will be destroyed, will tell you that even if we talk about $2 million for us to work in the peace of this country, we are not asking for for so.
Let's conclude the conversation on a few points. There's been a lot of use of intemperate or inflammatory language. What would be your caution to the political parties? And then I'll wrap with the Electoral Commission. How do you feel they fared? We've spoken about it briefly, but what more would you expect? For example, there have been calls that with the voters register and all that, there should be an external forensic audit, highly transparent, so that we know what is there, what is not there, so that we don't have issues on election day. What are your reactions to these?
No, you see, for some of those things, some of us are cautious because, I mean, we don't talk for EC. I'm not the spokesperson for EC.
But you're a citizen, EC, and you engage.
The EC should really come out and let the public know that with these arising anomalies, for example, we know that it's a human institution. It's not a perfect institution. Like we all know, wherever we have worked, there are shortcomings. But what do we want to do to enhance and build more confidence and trust that somebody might not misinterpret sometimes genuine mistake, that it was something deliberate. For me, that's the important thing. That work in such a way that even when you make a mistake, for example, we saw from 2020 the announcement of the results and what happened. Exactly. Raise questions and make it a bit problematic. Now we do limited voter registration, the tabulation, or if you like, the additions. I think that we need to be more meticulous. Given the state of suspicion in which we are, the pressure
so the EC should be more meticulous, but you don't support this idea of an external forensic audit?
No, because they have their own internal. I think that it must be a matter for IPAC together to agree. If you see the voter registration exhibition, what is the essence of it? It is supposed to unearth anomalies, in my view. So at least we have achieved that. When it was exhibited, we have achieved that. Well, we've noticed that people have been transferred without authority to a different place, at another place. How widespread is the problem? We must all agree. And then all the political parties should come and sit down at IPAC. And I think that IPAC must be strengthened.
Okay.
If we agree within the mandate of the EC also, that there is a way by which we can really address this to your satisfaction. We can address this. We give you the assurance that we can address this to your satisfaction without the alternative that you are giving. Then we all agree.
But so far, if you had to score the EC on a scale of 1 to 10 for their performance, how would you score them?
Well, do you mean in terms of previous elections that they have organized, or maybe between now and...
ahead of the 2020. So let's start from election 2020 to now. How do you...
Yeah, well, I think I will avoid, rating the EC because it's not in my power to pass judgment on them. Mine is to cooperate with them and also maybe, as we can from the Peace Council angle, maybe engage with them when anybody has raised an issue, say, look, this thing has come to out. For example, like this anomalies, for example, it was a matter of concern for us. And we began some engagement. And then at the time, I think we were told that the EC was coming out to also address the issue in public. But we'll continue with our engagements with the EC.
Sure.
With any complaint that come up, we discuss it and we see how the merits of it. We'll just say, look, the EC, can you do something better to really satisfy the people in public, apart from even the NDC or the other parties. No, the whole country need a certain basis to be confident that the EC will organize a credible election. In fact, to be credible also requires public trust. To say there's a public credibility of the elections depends on public trust. So I think the EC must also do its work very well to engender more of the public trust and confidence that whenever things happen, people might not put some interpretations on it. But once we don't see that happen and repeated anomalies coming up, in fact, it worsens the depth of the suspicion.
I want you to do me a favor in some 30 seconds, and that will be the final word I'll take. Peace, yes, but from the standpoint of galamsey and everything it is doing to us. You spoke about it earlier. Don't tell me. I hear the president and those at the Jubilee House watch this show a lot. I'd like you to address Mr. President on the state of galamsey, what you see and what you expect of him. Those will be your final words.
My final words. Great respect, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. I got excited, really, when you said to the whole nation that if it comes putting your presidency on the line to fight galamsey, you will do it. What it meant was that you were prepared even to get out of power if you fail in doing this. You still have some time to be able to do this. 3 months is still a time to take an action. The galamsey is becoming worse. The devastation is widening in scope. The threat to our very survival, because we might not get a source of water, is on the increase. It is threatening the very broad base of our peace. You've been given the mandate. You are the president. You are the first gentleman of the country. We want you to leave a legacy. Let us remember you for the best of things. So if your action against galamsey is the only thing that you can do, that posterity will remember you and say, yes, we had a president who saw that our country was being devastated by galamsey, and he took action and stopped it. Not the president alone. All who have some authority related to this galamsey, I'm talking about traditional authority. And I have said somewhere in Fanti or in Chi that, no, the excavators, they don't have wings. Wenyantaban, they don't have wings. So they drive on your roads.
Don't you see them?
Don't you see them? No. Still, I don't want to denigrate the Fulani issue. When the Fulani issue came, in some places, Nananom and the youth of those areas rose because they thought the Fulani was devastating their farming lands. How different is this galamsey? Cocoa farms are being destroyed. How different is this?
Why are they not rising?
Why are they not rising? Including the youth. Including the youth. You see, the security. Let us not put aside, let's all, put aside this kind of pecuniary, interest in wherever we have sent for national duty, that we easily get compromised.
Right.
I mean, you send a military man, you send a police, he goes there. Now we are told the MCEs, in fact, names of certain MPs. And I would advise the young people strongly that if you have an MP who has a hand in the galamsey that is destroying our water sources and our farmlands, he doesn't deserve to be voted for.
I think we'll cap it off there. In recent times, the Fourth Estate came out with another, piece with some core members of this administration supposedly mired in galamsey. Maybe that is why some people are saying they did worse than we did. So maybe we too, we can do it. But Sheikh, thank you so much for joining us this morning. In fact, we're going to